Okay, so again, welcome to the Academic Success in Canada session. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sarah, and I'm an International Student Advisor at the International Center for Students. I'm also joined by Lena, one of the wonderful student staff who will be supporting with the chat and some background technology. And we're also joined by Jillian, our lovely facilitator of the session today from the Center for Academic Communication. So to start us off in a good way, I would like to acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen, Songhees, and Esquimalt peoples on whose territory the university stands, and the Lekwungen and WSÁNEĆ peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. So this is a territory acknowledgement that we do at UVic as an act of reconciliation. So you will typically hear a territory or land acknowledgement at the start of meetings and events in Canada to recognize the land that we are currently on and to honor the Indigenous peoples who have historic and present relationships to this land. You can learn a little bit more about the territory acknowledgement at UVic through a link that Lena will share in the chat. So go there to kind of learn more about that. And so just to give a little more context, this session is being offered as part of our international student orientation programs. Between August 19th and August 23rd, the International Center for Students and campus partners are offering these online sessions to introduce you to services being offered to students and provide opportunities to connect and learn about the resources available to you. From August 27th to September 1st, there will be many in-person programs for you to attend, and we hope that you'll join us. So during that week, you will get a chance to meet our team, get connected on campus, and make new friends at different events such as beach socials, board game cafes, and hikes. We'll also have our all-day International Student Welcome event on Thursday, August 29th. You can register for all of the events using the registration forms that Lena will share in the chat. They're hyperlinked, so just go ahead and register for the ones that you'd like to join. If you haven't submitted your photo for your one card yet, please do so on the website that Lena again will share in the chat. Thanks so much, Lena. You will need your one card to check in at the International Student Welcome event on Thursday, August 29th. So do try and submit your photo by August 23rd so that it can be processed in time. Just so you know that that card is your official UVic student identification and campus debit card. It also will give you access to some great discounts. So again, if you have any questions during the session for me or for Jillian, you can post them in the chat. I will be staying in the background and happy to support as needed. But for now, I will go ahead and pass it off to Jillian to start us off with today's session.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to meet you online in this environment, and I hope I get to meet you in person soon as well. We'll be the CAC will be at many of the welcome events, so stop on by and say hello. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay? Yes. You on the right one? Okay. So this is the Academic Success in Canada information session. As Sarah said, my name is Jillian or Jill Saunders. My email is there on the screen. It's jillians@uvic.ca. And my main role on campus is as an English as an additional language specialist in the Center for Academic Communication, which was formerly known as the Writing Center. Writing help is still mainly what we do, but we do a whole bunch of other things now as well. So I'll let you know towards the end what all of those things are and what kinds of support you can expect to receive from us. So I too would like to acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen, Songhees, and Esquimalt peoples on whose territory the university stands, and the Lekwungen and WSÁNEĆ peoples whose historical relationships to land continue to this day. I'm currently about 10 minutes from campus in my house right now near Swan Lake. So you'll hear instructors do the territorial acknowledgement, probably not every class, but probably at the beginning of class and all major events. And some may personalize it as well. So for me, my ancestry is sort of European, all over the place. And I was born here in Victoria at the Jubilee Hospital, and so were my parents, and then my grandparents came from Europe. So I'm really grateful to be here on these lands. And as I look out my window, I'm right across from sort of Swan Lake. So I like to imagine what it would have been like when the houses all weren't here and you could just sort of see the lake all across. And sometimes I see the deer and sometimes an occasional rabbit come through my neighborhood. So yeah, it's a really nice place to be. And so welcome to Victoria and the island. It's a really amazing place to be. Okay, so what's going to happen in this session today? It's about what you can expect at UVic and Canadian universities, and also what's expected from you as a student. So some things may be similar to contexts that you're coming from, and some things may be a little bit different. So it's good to kind of have that comparison in your mind as we go into the term in a good way, and know what things might be different, and expect when you may need to seek support or Google something or whatnot. So we're going to go over what to expect from your syllabus, which is the course schedule that you receive at the beginning of every course. It may be posted in Brightspace, or you may have to download it. Your instructor may distribute that. We'll talk about the grading system in Canada and how that may be different from other contexts. Expectations for group work. A lot of coursework at UVic is participatory, so we'll talk about what's expected of you and what you can expect. Assignments in general, what types of assignments and how to complete those well. Communicating effectively with professors and TAs. And I think I changed the order, so I think that may be one of the earlier topics. And then academic integrity and what that means, avoiding plagiarism, and acknowledging the work of others appropriately. And then we'll talk about academic supports and resources. And then we'll have some time for questions and discussion. So I'd like to start off just by saying hello. If you want to pop into the chat, or if you're comfortable with like the text and drawing tools in Zoom, you can write in this white space. So you can, if you have any like burning questions that you're hoping to have answered in this session, I'm hoping that you'll let me know maybe some of those now, and I'll try to address them during the presentation. Otherwise, we'll save some to the end. But is there anything that you really, really are hoping to know that I might be able to answer for you? So you can either use the text or drawing to write here, or you can post in the chat. Or if you just want to say hello and let us know where you're coming to us from, or where you're from. I'll give you maybe, somebody's drawing. If you just want to try out the Zoom tools, if you've got some online classes this term and you want to get familiar with that, that's fine as well. So I'll give us maybe just 2 or 3 minutes. I'm from Vietnam, Mexico. Greetings to you as well. Hola. In the chat, hello from Malaysia, Switzerland. AI and Chat GPT, we are absolutely going to talk about that a little bit. Bangladesh, Oregon, just below us, Iran, Kazakhstan, Bangladesh, and Victoria, Austria. Right? China, Hong Kong, India, Japan, lots from Mexico, Argentina. Maybe one more minute. There's only one question so far. Things may come to you as we're going through the presentation. So you could save those questions, maybe jot them down for the end, or you can put them in the chat, and Lena will monitor that, and we'll get to them at the end of the session. Okay, so I'm going to clear this slide and we'll move on. Great. So nice to have such a diverse group here today. So I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person soon. Okay, so we're going to start with understanding your syllabus. So the syllabus is the document, maybe called a course schedule or a course outline as well, that you'll receive. Usually they're posted right before the beginning of class. All instructors are required to submit one to their department for approval. So usually I do that about 2 weeks before the class starts, and then I usually post it a few days before class starts. So maybe I should tell you a little bit about myself as well and why I'm here. So as I noted, I'm an English as an additional specialist. That's my main job, but I'm also a PhD candidate in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction. And I also teach a TWP 135, the required academic writing course. And I'm also teaching a graduate course in academic writing in the Department of Education this term. So kind of had my hands in a lot of different things and worn a lot of hats on campus. So if you have any questions about anything related to academic communication, I'm a good person to ask, as are my colleagues at the CAC. Okay, so the syllabus, I think this little cartoon kind of sums it up. Pretty much everything that you should need to know about your class should be on the syllabus. Sometimes it can be quite a lengthy document. So here up in the corner, this is a picture of what the one for ATWP 135 looked like last year, I think. And as you can see, it's about 16 pages long. So it is a good idea. The policies will be similar if you're taking courses within the same department, but it's a really good idea to read over each syllabus that you receive in detail. Make sure that you've understood all of the policies and all of your instructors' instructions for contacting them, office hours, and so on. So the syllabus should give you information about what to call your instructor. So usually their preferred name will be on there, their contact information, and their office hours. So office hours in Canada, it's expected that instructors will keep office hours. Since COVID, some instructors probably will still be having in-person office hours, or some may offer office hours through Zoom, or they may want to be contacted during email, by email to set up an appointment. So that information will all be probably in the syllabus, and your instructor will probably let you know the first day of class as well, how those work. But those office hours are part of the instructor's job. They're there for you. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of those. It's a great chance to go and meet your instructor. If you're interested in working in your instructor's field, you can pop by and ask them questions. They love to talk about their work. And if you have questions about the assignment or the exam or how to succeed in the class, that's a great opportunity. So even if they're scheduled and you can't go to the time that they're scheduled, you can usually email your instructor and set up a different time to chat, either in Zoom or in person. Class and department policies will also be on the syllabus. So you should be able to find things like the attendance policy, whether your course has one of those, what to do if you are sick or you need to miss class, whether you need to email your instructor about that, or how to catch up, and any department policies as well. Those should all be listed on the syllabus, as well as assignment and grading information. There should at least be like a brief overview of the types of assignments in the course and how those are weighted and graded. Sometimes I think that's down probably like the second to last on the bottom right corner in that picture is the grading scheme just generally for ATWP. So that tells you what an A+ piece of writing in general looks like, down to a D or an F. So if you read through that carefully, you should be able to kind of measure yourself against that, those criteria, and get a good sense of what your assignment should look like when you hand them in, and what you need to do to improve. The course schedule may have a variety of different levels of detail depending on the instructor, but the course schedule should also be on the syllabus, as well as any additional policies. The academic integrity policy or a link to it may be there, as well as links to other campus resources, like the Center for Academic Communication or campus wellness, and so on. having a look in the chat. Try to ignore that. We'll come back to that after. Okay, so tips for the syllabus: read it carefully, read each one. I know it's a lot of reading that is probably not very interesting that you want to do at the start of the course, but it's really important that you have read and understood. I've had students contact me that they had no idea that something was due, or that they had to attend class regularly or something like that, but all of that information was in the syllabus, so that should have been read and understood. You may have questions about things that are in the syllabus, so if you do go to office hours or ask after class, make sure that you clarify things that you need to clarify. If you can, it's a great idea to print a copy and keep it handy. In the old days when I was a student, I had a notebook with 3 sections for each of my classes that were on different days. So I had 2 of them, and then I would print the syllabus and pop it into that little pocket at the front of the notebook. So because we don't have that, most people don't do that anymore, and mostly we're working online, it can be easy to kind of forget about the syllabus and your schedule and so on. So I definitely recommend coming up with some kind of system for keeping those all handy and checking them regularly, at least probably weekly. You'll want to be checking your schedule, making sure that you're keeping up with the readings, because those will be listed probably in the course schedule, as well as possibly on Brightspace. But yes, very, very important to keep going back to that and checking it. If there are any important dates, and there will be important dates, like when assignments are due, or if there are important like in-class activities, I highly suggest transferring those into a sort of a master calendar or planner. The bookstore sells these like great 4-month planners where you can dry erase and write out your whole schedule and put it up on your wall. You may have like some kind of paper planner. I think those are available from the UVic bookstore and from the welcome desk. Or you may have some sort of app that you're using. So highly recommend just setting reminders in advance. Set yourself a reminder for when your assignments are due, like at least a week before they're due, so that nothing sneaks up on you. And it's a great idea to be able to just see your whole term out in front of you, to know when the busy times are going to be, and just like leave yourself time to get everything completed. And then, as I said, read the syllabus again later in the term if you have any questions before emailing or asking your instructor. Chances are the information that you need is already in the syllabus. If you can't find it, then of course, by all means, go ahead and email your instructor. Okay, so if you need to email in your instructor, here's some tips for effective communication. So most of that communication takes place over email. Your instructor may let you know if they have any requirements for whether you can ask questions after class. Usually there's only like a 10-minute period when classes are switching over. So saving up all your questions to try to line up and ask them after class may not be the most effective strategy. Your instructor may have back-to-back classes as well and not have time to stay behind and ask questions after class. So make sure you're aware if that's the case. And then if you need to email your professor or your teaching assistant, here are some tips. So first, it's a good idea to identify who you are. So some instructors are teaching 3 or 4 sections of the same class. Some are teaching classes with 200, 300 students in them. So you'll want to identify yourself. So that means your full name, possibly your V number if that's relevant, and the name of the course that you're in, possibly the course code. Like if there may be like multiple sections, like ATWP has 35 sections. So if you're in A26, say that you're in A26, because the instructor may have A26, also A11 and A04. And then possibly the time that the course meets, if that's relevant. In Canada, it's customary to sort of just get like straight to the point. You might give a little greeting like, "Hi, I hope you had a nice weekend." But it isn't usual to include like a lot of small talk in an email. You want to get sort of straight to the point. Be clear about what you need and when you need it by, and what the instructor would need to do to be able to complete your request. Really important, make sure that you check the person that you're writing to, their preferred form of address and name spelling. So for me personally, I don't like being called Mrs. or Miss. So in Canada, that's usually like elementary school, you would use those forms of address for your instructor. But in higher education, it's customary to call your professor professor is the more formal if they don't have a PhD. If they do have a PhD, they're doctor, and they may prefer to be called Dr. Saunders if they're being extremely formal. So at the very beginning, it's a good idea to just sort of like be extremely polite and err on the side of formality if you're contacting someone for the first time. So even I do that. If I'm contacting an instructor that I don't know very well, I'll contact them and say, dear Dr. Smith. And then at that point, if they respond to you and they sign off on their email, regards Jillian, then I know that they're okay with being on a first name basis and I can call them by their first name from then on. But at the beginning, I would start being more formal and polite. And make sure to proofread. So we've got someone brought up AI tools. There are lots of AI tools embedded for grammar and spelling check. So you can use those, or just make sure that you give it a quick read over, make sure everything makes sense and spelling errors are at a minimum before you send it off. And there's a great guide here. One of our most comprehensive online writing center resources in North America is the Online Writing Lab, or that whole at Purdue University. So they've got lots of great resources in addition to their very extensive citation guides and writing guides. So they have a guide on advisor, students, professor, how to email your professor effectively with some templates and so on. So if there's anything you want to know, you can usually just Google, like, how do I email my professor, and find some really great advice from reputable sources. Okay, so we move on to grading, the important stuff. So the grading scale in Canada ranges from, of course, F to A ranges. And here's an example of what that sort of system might look like. Some courses have slightly different grading systems. For example, I took a course in professional editing in my undergrad at UVic, where an A+ was 95 and above rather than 90, because if you're editing, it should be perfect. So the scale was slightly different, but this is quite standard, these numbers here. So this description, it can be found in the undergraduate calendar. Different departments may also have their own descriptions of what A's and B's and so on look like, as ATWP does for writing. But this should give you sort of a general example. UVic is on a 9-point value system. A lot of universities are on a 4. There are calculators if you need to calculate what your GPA is on a 4-point scale, but UVic uses a 9. So here, for example, an A+ is 90 to 100. So that shows, mastery of the subject matter. Anything from 80 up is in the A range. And then we also use pluses for the pluses and minuses for B's, and then C+, and then from there on, it's CD. So it's good to be familiar with kind of that system and what to expect. There are some other sort of like special grades. You probably not at the undergraduate level, but maybe at the graduate level, there are courses that are just pass fail. And then there are also systems in place for if something really terrible happens and you can't complete the course. So if that happens, if something really bad is happening and you can't complete the course, whether work with a lot of students who have say, I don't know, say there's like a death in the family, or they have like a serious injury or an accident, or a mental health problem or something like that. And they just can't complete the course, or they can't complete certain aspects of the course. There are policies to get you through that and to help you successfully complete your term. So the options are that DEF is deferred status. If you can't complete in one term, it means that you complete the next term. But there is paperwork and there are forms to fill out to do that. So, and there's lots of help to get you through something like that. So your instructor would be the first point of contact probably, and then academic advising can all help with that. The Center for Academic Communication also helps with those kinds of things. If students happen to show up and be in a bit of a crisis, we can help navigate and get you connected to those resources as well. So don't just drop off the face of the earth. I've had a student do that as well, where they didn't drop the course and then they were still in the course, and I kept emailing them, you need to drop the course, you're going to have to pay for this course and you haven't done any work, where are you? and the student just never showed up. So that student paid thousands of dollars for a course that they ended up failing because they just disappeared. So absolutely make sure that you have gone through all the important dates on the academic calendar as well, and that you know there are days for 100% fee reduction. I think that's sort of halfway through September, and then 100% fee reduction. And then the end of October is the last date that you can drop a course without actually failing it. So better to drop it and have it just gone from your transcript than to continue and fail. Okay. So grading system. So you may be used to something like a curve in that yellow and green image. There may be words in your syllabus like weight, and then actual grades. Is there a curve? Is there a median? Is there a set due date, or is there a grace period? These are all things that should be in your course syllabus, and your instructor should be clearly communicating. But sort of here's an example of like a screenshot of my grading sheet for one of my courses that I was teaching. So your Brightspace site will also allow you to see like most of your grading and what's happening there with your assignments. So once the grades are released, you'll be able to see that. UVic typically does not grade on a curve. The curve is that image where a certain number of assignments must be 10% must be Fs, 5% must be Ds, only 10% can be As. We typically, most courses do not do that here. So that means you get awarded the grade that you deserve in most cases. So that's not really a thing. Your assignments may be weighted at a certain weight and then be graded at a different number. And so what that means is that maybe your assignment is worth 5 points, but it's only worth like 2% of your total grade. So the image on the screen there, that's sort of what those numbers mean. So there are students that got, say, 100% on the reflective memo. They got 5 out of 5, and that was worth 5% of their grade. And some of the other things are, sort of cumulative assignments where there are 4 parts and they're set up to all equate to 50% of the grade or something like that. So it's a really good idea at the beginning of the term when you're setting up your schedule to kind of take a look at those assignments and see like which ones are the heaviest weighted. Like, do you have a really big final exam that's worth 50% of your grade, or do you have a number of small assignments? Are there any that you could skip if you got overwhelmed? So for example, in ATWP 135, the required undergraduate academic writing and research course, there are a number of mini assignments that if you're just too busy, they're only worth, say, like 2.5%. You don't have to complete them, but the rest of the assignments are required. You would need to complete them to pass the course. And if you don't submit one, you will actually fail the course. So it's a great idea to just go through, ask questions if you have them, make sure that you fully understand all the weights and the grading schemes of your assignments, and make sure that the ones that you're required to do to pass the course, that you're fulfilling those requirements and saving enough time for them in your term. Okay, so grant participation. So there may be a participation grade for your course. It may comprise your attendance in the course. There are lots of different ways to participate in a course. It's not always, putting your hand up and asking a question or participating in discussion. So make sure that you understand those expectations, which will also probably be in the syllabus if there is a participation grade. So you may or may not be asked to answer questions in class. Either some instructors are using like apps for that now for class participation and recording those things. And some may just be like a face-to-face. You will very likely need to participate in small or whole group discussions. You might have to contribute to online forum discussions in Brightspace or online activities for your course, even if it's an in-person course. And you might have to participate in peer review of your classmates' work and receive, evaluate, and implement your classmates' feedback on your work. So I'm mainly speaking from sort of a smaller class situation. The courses that I teach are no more than 32 students, and they're writing courses. So those are the sorts of participation that are required in classes like that. But in larger courses, your participation might be measured by your online engagement or completing quizzes and things like that. So make sure that you understand what is expected in each class, as the requirements may be different, and you want to succeed and do your best. All right, and then moving on to group work. Does anyone have feelings about doing group work? Personally, I've had like 2 great experiences with group work, and the rest have been like not great. So I tend to approach group work with a little bit of caution. And I see someone has their hand raised. If you could just save that question to the end, that would be great. Or you can pop it in the chat and we'll address it when we get to it. Okay, but maybe you do have feelings about group work, and that's what that was. So we can definitely talk about that at the end. So here are some tips for making group work well. I have had great experiences with group work, and so hopefully you will as well. So it is expected of you that you'll participate to the best of your ability, whatever that may be. You should inform your group of any absences or if you're having trouble completing any of your tasks. So usually your group will distribute the work among yourselves, and you can decide sort of how that works. You'll have some autonomy within your group. So if you're having trouble completing something, usually you can negotiate with your team members to pick up some slack somewhere else if you're having trouble with something, and your group members should help. Respond to your group members promptly. So some courses may require you to use something like Microsoft Teams for group communication. So that can be sort of for participation, or you may be communicating in other platforms like text or email or social media or something like that. So make sure that you are checking your messages in whatever platform you're using regularly. Group members, in my experience, usually expect to receive an answer within 24 hours to a question. So, yeah, so make sure that you respond promptly if there's a question. If there are any parts of the task you don't understand, make sure to clarify those things so that all the expectations are very clear to you. Take notes during meetings is a great tip. So maybe somebody in your group will be the designated minute taker. And then you want to make sure that at the end of each team meeting that you're understanding everyone else's responsibilities as well as your own and those key action items. So what do you have to do before the next meeting or before a certain time, and then complete your tasks on time and to group standards. Something that can make those kinds of things go really smoothly is to develop some kind of team charter. So if you're in the business department, these are really common. This one is from UVic Human Resources, is a great resource. So if your group is not just given one in class, you can make your own. And this sort of dictates, this one says, the kind of like atmosphere or climate that you would like your group to have. So you can say how you'd like to interact with your group members. You may take on different roles or responsibilities where you have either the same role or responsibility throughout the project, or those may change. To make sure those expectations are clear and also written down somewhere so that everyone can access them. This one contains aspects of creativity and how to maintain focus. So aspects like respect other people's time and focus on the issue at hand. Those are all things that can be set out by your group ahead of time, so that if you encounter any difficulties, you have that document to refer back to. You might be asked to evaluate your team members at the end of the project as well. So these kinds of really concrete lists can help you make sure that you're evaluating everyone fairly and that you have really sort of specific things to refer to if things did not go well. So if something goes really sideways, usually you should try to resolve that within your group to start with, but if it can't be resolved, contact your instructor before the thing is due, and hopefully they can step in and help you mediate a little bit if there's something that your group can't overcome on their own. All right, and then assignments. So there are a lot of different types of assignments. You will be in all different kinds of disciplines. So this is sort of really very general information. but a lot of the assignments that you submit will probably be written tasks. There are lots and lots of verbs associated with these kinds of written tasks. So you may be asked to summarize, you might be asked to critique. Annotated bibliographies are common when you're doing research. You might have to write a research paper. You might have to write personal responses or reflections. Discussion paper, you might have to complete a reading log. If you're in the sciences, you were doing lab reports, possibly persuasive writing in the form of proposals or something like that. ATWP has a personal literacy statement that's like a reflective sort of creative piece at the start of the term, or you might be asked to submit an outline or a draft for a future project. So all of these things require sort of different types of skills. So there are lots of resources available. This is one of the main things that the CAC can help you with. So if you receive some instructions for an assignment and you're like, oh my gosh, I have never written an annotated bibliography before. What is that? How do I even start that? You can bring those instructions to us, and we can have a chat about how that works and help you get set up and on the right track. So you could either visit your instructor's office hours to get some more information, or you could come to visit us at the CAC. There's lots of great information online as well. So we can give you resources, or you can do your own search for like, what is an annotated bibliography? Personally, I still come up against assignments that I've never done this before. I recently had to I had to make a graphic abstract. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, but I submitted an article for publication, and this journal is asking for a graphical abstract. Like, what is that? So a little bit of Googling later, and I had some examples and some templates. And then I also got some feedback from someone I know and trust to give me feedback. So even like at the highest levels, we all come up against, academic tasks that we've never encountered before. So there are lots of resources and lots of ways to figure that out. So if you're in first year or this is your first time in university in Canada, don't assume that everyone else knows what they're doing. There are lots of, everybody's in the same boat where, what's a rhetorical analysis? Or your instructor may, sort of just roll off the tongue as if they think everyone knows what to do, but often that's not. So asking questions from your instructor or your classmates or the CAC or someone else you know and trust is a really great idea to get those things clarified. Okay, tips for assignments, get started early. So the library has some great tips. The CAC, we've got great assignment planning resources and worksheets as well. The library has an assignment calculator that I think is really interesting. So they've got it for two different types of assignments. One of them is a research paper. So if you go into that document and you say, I have a research paper, here's the due date, it'll give you a really detailed list of things that you need to complete to get that research paper done. So it gives you like all the steps for like research and writing and so on as we go. So something like that is really helpful. And there are lots and lots of resources to keep you on track. If you have never written something like a research paper before, the length that's kind of expected at the undergraduate level, your research papers for ATWP 135, if you're taking that course, will be probably about 1,000 words, so like 5-6 pages at a minimum, and they just get longer as you go on. So if you've never done something like that before, you might not be as familiar with all of the sort of behind the scenes tasks that happen included in the writing process, like doing the research and creating an outline and things like that. Those things take time. It takes time to read and annotate your articles and pull together the information and refine your topic and your thesis statement. So make sure that you leave yourself enough time and don't start at the very last minute. Okay, so some other tips. Each discipline and each course will have a preferred citation style and format. So a lot of undergraduates from Canadian high schools come into UVic, and they've really never dealt with these kinds of things before. So if you have, you're at an advantage, but if you haven't, that's okay too. So here's some examples. MLA, the Modern Language Association, or APA, the American Psychological Association, are two of sort of the main citation styles. And what this means is that they have publication manuals for, how they like to have their documents formatted, how we cite our sources, and so on. Engineering uses IEEE. A lot of disciplines have their own little guides, like in anthropology, they use APA, but they also have a skinny little anthropology guide for some specific things that only happen in anthropology. So those guides are there. Most of them are online now. The library has fantastic resources. They have condensed guides as well as the full ones available completely online now. As well, the APA has a great website and a blog. If I ever have questions, I just type into Google, how do I blank in APA? And I get lots of great information. If you can't find the information, our librarians are great sources of information on that as well. Each your disciplines has a designated subject librarian. And I've often asked the library questions about citation when I can't figure out what I need to do as well. They're fantastic. So there are lots of little nitpicky things that differ. So I have used MLA. My background is in English literature. We use MLA. Now that I'm in the social sciences, we use APA. So making that switch, if you have to switch between different ones, is a little bit tricky between assignments. So make sure that you read those really carefully and put the punctuation in the right place. So, for example, MLA uses page numbers and not dates. APA uses the date all the time. So there are reasons for doing that based on what the discipline is doing with that information. So make sure that you have read and understand your style guides and know where to find the information when you need it. Follow the instructions of your assignments really carefully. So sometimes you're being asked to do multiple things within the assignment. Sometimes it's just one thing. There may be a rubric which tells you exactly how many points you're getting for each thing, or there might not be. It'll tell you how you're being graded, what types of sources you need to use. So in academic work, it's customary to use academic sources. You can find those in the library database or through Google Scholar or other tools. But things like Wikipedia are not really considered an academic source. Don't cite Wikipedia unless you've specifically been told you can. Sometimes other types of sources, as long as they're reputable sources, are allowed. So you may be able to cite like blog posts or other types of scholarly websites or popular, like reliable news sources, like online magazines and journals and newspapers as well. But make sure that you understand exactly what types of sources you are meant to use. So the ATWP research paper, I think, requires 3 academic, scholarly, peer-reviewed academic journal articles, and then additional sources. So I've allowed students to use YouTube videos as sources when I approved them. Like I looked at them and I thought, great, that seems like that person absolutely is an expert in their field, and that's fine. So if you're not sure, you can always ask and make sure that you're on the right track. Make sure that you know how and when you need to submit your assignment. So your instructor may require a PDF or a Word document. At UVic, we're sort of firmly in the Microsoft ecosystem. So like I, for example, cannot open any documents that are submitted to me with Pages in the Apple application for typing. So I don't have any Apple products in my life, and I cannot open any documents that are in Pages. Or if they're in like your personal Dropboxes or like your personal like OneDrive, if they're uploaded as links. So they probably need to be actual documents submitted into a Brightspace Dropbox. That's the usual, but there may still be instructors who are requiring like printed paper copies or something like that. So make sure that you're submitting as required. And if there are any additional preferences, so sometimes instructors will like you to label your documents in a specific way, maybe last name, underscore, first name, research paper, something like that. So if there's anything like that, make sure that you've read and understood those instructions and that you're following all of those requirements. So those are in place just to make grading easier for the instructor so that everything is the same, and for you to get your assignment to where it needs to go in the best way possible. Okay, if you need help, you can ask for help from your classmates probably. So it's good to find a buddy in class if you can, and you can share notes if one of you is absent or ask questions. You can ask your instructor. Your course may or may not have a teaching assistant, and that teaching assistant may or may not be available for questions. Sometimes TAs only grade papers and they don't answer questions. Sometimes they're available for their own office hours. So you can probably ask either one of them. You can ask the Center for Academic Communication. So I'll tell you in a minute exactly what kinds of things we can help with. The library is a really, really great resource. The CAC is located in the library, so we work really closely with them all the time and refer back and forth. So if you went to one of us for one thing and actually needed the other one, we would just walk you down the hallway. You might be able to ask your friends and family if you have friends and family who have, experience or are just good sounding boards for things. They might be able to help you. And there's also the Center for Accessible Learning, which I'll mention in a minute as well. Okay, so someone had asked, this is sort of new to this last couple of years. For your assignments, can you use ChatGPT at UVic? We're subscribed to Copilot as part of Microsoft 365, or there's other AI tools to complete your work. The answer is it depends. So our library has some fantastic resources. If you are allowed to use AI tools for your work, you need to keep track of what you are doing. So keep everything documented, all of those chats, save them, screenshot them, save them somewhere. And that AI tool will need to be cited as well. So the APA and MLA and other citation styles, they now have manuals on how to cite AI in your work. So if you do use it, you need to give correct attribution, just like we would to any other source. The Academic and Technical Writing Program, ATWP, also has guidelines for students on using AI. And the guideline is basically no, it's a writing course, so you may not use an AI tool to generate your writing for you. But there may be parts of assignments that your instructors allow you to play around with it or to like generate an outline or compare with your own writing or something like that. So those will be really specific to the courses and the instructor. So if you have any questions at all about what is allowed or not, make sure that you clarify those. This is a great resource for if you're considering using AI for any part of your work. It's kind of like a flow chart of questions that you can ask yourself. So this is from UNESCO and Higher Education and adapted by our own research librarian, Rich McHugh. So the first question is, does your instructor allow it? So LLM stands for large language model. Like ChatGPT, there are lots of others now as well. If they do not allow it, the answer is absolutely 100% no. It is unsafe. Do not use it. If they do allow it, then some other questions are like, does it matter if the output is true? So we know at this point that ChatGPT and the other sources love to make things up if they don't actually know the answers. So if it matters if it's true, it's probably not safe to use it. If it doesn't matter, or if it does matter if it's true, do you have the expertise to be able to correct it if it's wrong? So we now know, I have a colleague doing some research in the math department, and they're comparing 3 models for doing math problems, and they're finding that the output is about 85% correct. So are you okay with it? Your math only being 85% correct? In writing courses, we're pretty much concluding that ChatGPT writes at like a C level. So would you like a C level paper that's possibly including some incorrect information and could get you into a lot of trouble, or should you be doing the work yourself? So it's a very much like it depends situation right now. There is no sort of across the board policy on this, and instructors are using it or not using it in different ways. So make sure that you're 100% aware of what's happening. So you in the end are 100% responsible if you're allowed to use it. You're responsible for legal and ethical implications and for inaccuracies and for understanding your academic integrity policy and upholding that as well. So yeah, so I can answer more questions at the end. There are lots of discussions on campus happening surrounding this right now. So it's very much sort of the forefront of everyone's mind for sure. And the main reason is academic integrity. So UVic has lots of great resources on academic integrity generally. And what that means as a concept is basically that you have the courage to do your own work. You're going to be brave and ask for help if you're not sure what's expected or you need help, and having respect for the knowledge that you're using. So entering higher education and Canadian university means that you're joining academic conversations that have already been going on for years and years, probably without you. So you're becoming part of this community, and being part of this community means that we're respecting other people's ideas and information and words, and we're giving them correct attribution and support and acknowledgement when we need to use them. So if you have any questions, absolutely ask for help. The CAC absolutely supports any questions to do with academic integrity, avoiding plagiarism, and so on. We have workshops and lots of great resources, so we can help with that. Some of the things to do with academic integrity are absolutely cultural. Having worked in another country, I definitely encountered things that were okay to do, like completely okay to do there, 100% no problem, that are a big problem in Canada. So there are some differences. It was mainly to do with like citing yourself. I was editing instructors' papers who were citing their previous, or they were using their previous work, but not citing it. So in that context, that was okay. Just reuse your own work. But even in Canada, if you reuse your own work, you have to cite yourself. So there's just different requirements for different things like that. So if you're ever unsure of anything or think there might be an issue, just ask. Okay, UVic has a policy with expectations. So you can answer questions like, how do I avoid plagiarism? We'll talk a little bit about paraphrasing and summarizing in a minute, and coding and how that works, how to document sources. But these are in the frequently asked questions because they are frequently asked questions. A lot of students have questions about these kinds of things. So there's no shame and no judgment about asking questions. A lot of these things will be new to students from our own Canadian high schools, and will be new to you as well. So we expect questions. We love to answer questions and help you stay online. The library has a great guide about plagiarism. So types of plagiarism, avoiding it, what you do and don't have to cite, and so on. And the CAC has resources as well. There's a study done at UVic many years ago, and lots of research on this, but generally students plagiarize because of poor time management. So you can avoid plagiarism and making a poor decision at the last minute by planning ahead, making sure that you leave yourself enough time that you don't get into a sticky situation. And if you do and it's the last minute and you're not finished, I personally as an instructor, I would much rather have my students be honest with me, send me an email saying, I couldn't get this done, I didn't leave enough time, can I please have another 48 hours? Absolutely yes, rather than make a bad decision and have to go through all kinds of academic integrity hearings and so on. So do plan ahead, but if you haven't and you make a mistake and you run out of time, ask for more time and ask. Students plagiarize because they want to get a good grade, and they think that they can get a better grade by cheating, by buying a paper, or by copy pasting from somewhere, or using now ChatGPT to write something for you. That is never a good idea. Students plagiarize because they don't know how to correctly use and cite source material. So we have we have intentional plagiarism where people are, buying a paper, that's on purpose, copy pasting without citing correctly. And then we have lots of accidental plagiarism as well. So make sure that you've read through thoroughly that academic integrity policy and understand what the implications are for each. Penalties are different depending on the course and the weight of the assignment and the type of plagiarism. And then cultural differences, as I mentioned, in academic integrity. So, but not knowing how to do something correctly is not an excuse for plagiarizing. The penalties they still exist and they're in place. So not to scare you, we're here to help and educate, but yeah, so the consequences can be serious. So plagiarism, obvious plagiarism, you should never buy a paper online or from another student. You may see services advertising, selling papers for courses, or they'll rewrite them for you. I've seen a few, they're terrible. So they're generally not great and in terms of quality. And if you get caught, the penalty is quite substantial. And I've also heard stories about if you subscribe to that sort of thing, then they start emailing you and asking for more money and threatening to tell your instructor that your paper was bought and things like that. So that can be quite a stressful situation, and that's one that we would never want our students ever to get into. Plagiarism is also stealing or borrowing, all or part of someone's work. So even if you have permission, and even if it's yourself, so that last one is submitting the same assignment for grading twice. You'd be plagiarizing yourself, and you don't want to do that. It's called multiple submission. If you are taking two courses where you think that like part of one assignment might possibly fit well with another in another course, and you want to use, say, like a couple paragraphs or a chunk that you wrote, you can ask for permission. In most cases, if it's a small part, the instructor will say, yes, absolutely, you can use that part in this essay. So always ask. Some things are possible, but just make sure that you get approval beforehand. And then the third one there is patch writing. So copy and pasting little pieces into a paper with or without citing it appropriately is also a form of plagiarism, whether it's intentional or not. But usually it's pretty easy to see. It's experienced instructors can tell when something is not your own work. And so, yeah, so those are things to avoid for sure. Here are some real life examples from students. So this is one, some of these were given to me by other departments. So this one I think is from the business department. And in this example, all of the parts in yellow are word for word exactly the same as the sources. And then all the student has done here is just put links to those sources in footnotes. So that's not a correct form of citation. So even for this discipline, that's not how you cite sources. This student has clearly made an attempt to do something, but had no idea what they were doing. So I think in this case, this assignment either received a 0 or maybe the student was allowed a rewrite. So they clearly didn't plagiarize on purpose. The sources are there. They tried to do something, but this is not even close to what we'd expect of a paper at university. So this one is from one of my students. So I mistakenly thought even, in a self-introduction, students won't plagiarize that. So we can save the plagiarism lesson to next week. I was wrong. So the student copy pasted these parts in yellow from Wikipedia to their own self-introduction to describe their hobby. And then they also took these images from Wikipedia to show me what their hobby looks like without attribution. So images require citation as well. And giving acknowledgement to the sources as well as words. So in this case, this was an international student. This was the very first assignment. I think it was worth 5%. So we had a conversation. The student was extremely surprised that this was a problem, and it was never a problem. So these things are not necessarily always huge problems. They don't always have enormous consequences. Usually it starts with a conversation, unless it's sort of like a final. And of course, plagiarism is not just for academic writing. I'm sure we're all familiar, or maybe if you're not from part of this world, a few years ago, the former First Lady Melania Trump just completely lifted big chunks of speech from our former First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama. So the parts in yellow are exactly the same. It is never okay in any situation to take someone else's words and pass them off as your own. So it happens in lots of high-profile cases as well. In music as well, there are like tons and tons of lawsuits right now where people like sample other people's work, or the wording is too similar, or the music is too similar. So I think those are good examples of like sort of real life cases to keep in mind. So it's never okay to just take someone else's words or ideas or creative work and say that it's your own. So how do you avoid plagiarism? Keep track of your sources really carefully. Especially now that we're doing everything on computers, it's so easy to just like open 50 tabs of articles and then put in little bits and pieces. And then you go, oh, where did I find that? Oh no, whose source is that? So make sure that you have systems in place. The CAC can help you with templates and documents for doing that. The library has resources on citation management software, if that's something that interests you. So there are lots of software now that's free that works with the library database where you can save your sources into programs like I'm using Zotero, Mendeley is another one, OneNote, and then it's easy to sort of just scoot your sources straight into lists and folders and keep track of them. So that's a great way to do that. You can avoid plagiarism mainly by understanding what, when, and how to give attribution. So we've got lots of resources on that as well. Practice quoting and paraphrasing. Leave yourself enough time to write and to learn from what you're reading as you're writing, to get feedback and to revise. So the CAC can help. The library is more the people to help with the nitty-gritty citational, like parenthetical citations and footnotes and things like that for different disciplines. But something that the CAC can really help with is showing you the best ways to incorporate your source material, whether that's summarizing or paraphrasing or quoting, and how to do that effectively. Review UVic's resources. There is an online course in Brightspace that's a self-enrollment course called Academic Integrity Matters. I believe there's another new one as well, so there may be a part 2 to that at this point. I've had questions before of, can you use a plagiarism checker? And are UVic instructors using plagiarism checkers? And the answer is probably definitely not. I've played around with a lot of them. They're very ineffective. So for you to be using a plagiarism checker to see if if your writing would get caught out as plagiarism is not a reliable way to do that. And your instructors also used to use something called turnitin.com that was a plagiarism checker. UVic is no longer subscribing to that, and most instructors are aware that like AI detectors aren't very effective in catching those things out. So that kind of technology should not really be in use. They're not very effective. The best way is for you to know and understand how to best use your source material. And then if you're not sure, to ask questions. So those are the ways to avoid. I mentioned a little bit about paraphrasing and quoting. So these kind of, the details of these are things that the CAC tutors can help with, but paraphrasing is essentially taking an idea and putting it into your own words. We have strategies for doing that effectively. And then quoting would be using the quotation marks, and then those are the exact words. So in each of these are APA style citations. So we've got parenthetical and in-text citations. And which one you use depends on sort of what you want to do with that source material in your own work. So that's sort of what that looks like, each of those methods of incorporating sources. So doing that effectively is the best way to avoid plagiarism. So again, about the tools. So there are lots of like grammar checking tools. Usually the use of those is completely okay. We've been using Grammarly for years and years and years. Microsoft Word and other applications have pretty effective, they're getting better grammar and style and spelling checkers. So do absolutely turn those on in whatever you're using. They're really effective for helping with like passive voice, and if you're missing like an article, an or a the, or spelling and usage errors. So those are usually across the board 100% green light for all of your work. But other tools like ChatGPT and online checking and content generator tools are very exercise caution, go through that flow chart. Are you allowed to use it? if you're allowed to use it, how are you allowed to use it, and can you be responsible for your content? Translators and things like that we've also been using for years and years and years. So usually those are okay. Some translators, some languages do better than others. So something else that we do at the CAC with a lot of international students or users of English as an additional language is if you've translated something, we can help you go through and say like, yes, this makes sense, or like, no, the translator is not doing a good job of, this vocabulary and that this would be a better word. So, so hopefully our jobs will not get replaced by robots anytime soon. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of wrap up with some resources. So the Center for Accessible Learning is the place where if you have any kind of learning disability or need accommodation, you would register through them. Their website is there and they can answer any questions. Basically, if you need like extra time on exams or something like that, the procedure is to get, you need like a physician's note and a diagnosis for those kinds of things, and then you can access those services for free. So that's sort of the procedure of that. I think it's a bit tricky with international students. Sarah might know more, but that is an option. They're there. They also have study solutions, which I think is available and open to everyone, but in pretty high demand. The library has tons and tons and tons of resources, are lots of like guides for disciplines and how to do things. Our librarians are fantastic resources. As I mentioned, your discipline has its own librarian that specializes in your discipline. You can make appointments with them. You can book appointments or chat with them online. If you're looking for resources in a specific area, they're super, super helpful. And then my area, the Center for Academic Communication. So for users of English as an additional language, we offer an English conversation cafe. I think this term it's on Wednesday afternoons. I'll have to check. Our schedule will be up on our website really soon. Mainly what we offer is one-on-one consultations for writing, speaking, presentations, and study skills. So we can help you sort of plan out what you need to do to complete your assignments effectively. We can help you practice for presentations, give feedback on pronunciation and timing and content, and mainly consultations for writing. So we changed our name 10 years ago, actually. Now we were the Writing Center, and now we're the Center for Academic Communication, because we do a lot more than just writing. But yeah, basically, if you have anything to do with academic communication of any kind that you have questions, you can bring those to us. And if we don't know the answer, or if it's something, mysteriously that we don't help with, we will usually know where to send you. So there's the information about the Center for Accessible Learning. So it is a by registration service. So if you need any kind of accommodations to reduce educational barriers, if you're a student, they are the ones to talk to. And then your instructor will get a notification that you have accommodations and accommodate you. There's the homepage for the university's library. So not only can you search for articles and books and videos, but you can see in the tabs there, they've got information on how to use the libraries, how to do research, citation help. So all the citation manuals are in that tab, and information about plagiarism. They've got tons of help guides, tips and tutorials, and videos and workshops. Our library has a digital scholarship commons up on the third floor. So they offer workshops I've attended workshops in using Canva for graphics. I've attended one on AI prompting recently. So they've got lots of really interesting things. All of their content is free and available for all students. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of everything that university has to offer. And here's the CAC main website. So we offer, you can meet with us either one-on-one, or if you're working on a group project, we work groups as well. We offer feedback via in-person appointments and Zoom appointments in real time, and also lots of written feedback now since COVID. So those are all options. So hopefully we have options that are accessible to everyone. And we also offer workshops. So I think this term I'm doing a workshop in self-editing and another one in citational practices, possibly. I'll have to double check that, but We offer workshops pretty much every week. I think they're on Wednesdays this term as well, throughout the term. And again, those are all free. They're mostly in Zoom. And if you miss one and would like the content, it's happy to send that out. Under Access Our Resources there, we have self-help guides. So we've got lots of tips and guides over on the right-hand there. That's, a chunk of our list of documents. So we've got some general information on how to write strong paragraphs, how to write academically, how to come up with a thesis statement or a research question, scientific reports, note-taking, and some like grammar things like articles and nouns, prepositions, etc. And then we also have a host of videos on YouTube as well, if that's how you prefer to learn on some of our sort of most frequently helped with. So to book an appointment, there's from our website, you can click on that button at the top there, book an appointment. And the ways that we can help you understand your assignment instructions, which I talked about a little bit. We can help you brainstorm ideas. This is one of my favorite things to do if you have kind of a kernel of idea, but you need help like developing it into an outline and a thesis statement or an argument. We can help you understand how to find relevant and appropriate sources and evaluate your sources. The librarians can do that in more depth as well, but we can do that too. We can help you outline and organize drafts, understand expectations in particular genres. If you're writing a summary or a rhetorical analysis or something that you haven't done before, we help students draft emails to instructors as well if it's important and they want to present themselves in the best way possible. So all of those kinds of things. We can help you in the final stages when you're proofreading and editing. And we can help you find resources and strategies to help you with writing, speaking, and time management and other study skills, exam prep, and so on. So we wear a lot of hats. We do a lot of things. If there's anything related to any of those things, you can, the worst you can do is ask, and we can say, no, we don't do that. But this person down the hall from us is the right person to ask for that. And then this is our booking site, UVic.mywc online. I've heard that we're changing to Microsoft Bookings in January, but for this term, we'll stick with our WC Online. Booking an appointment. So there's our website. Usually you'll see the tutors' names listed here. This is one of the schedules. So you'll see that the white spaces are available for booking. So once you register for an account with us, you can go ahead and book your own appointments. We're an appointment-based system. There are times of year where we get really, really busy. So sometimes you may be able to walk in and see someone, but because we do so much online work now, those appointments are a bit fewer. So it's a good idea to book ahead. You can book up to 2 weeks in advance. And we'll probably be pretty slow in September. So I highly encourage you to just like book an appointment, come in with some assignment instructions, and just sort of familiarize yourself with the service and see if it's something that might work well for you. You can book up to 3 appointments per week in any of the schedules. So everything is free. So there's lots of free help. There's no reason to not get help with your assignment. There's no prize for getting through without any help. All right, so I think that's about all I have to say today. My office, come by and visit anytime. Our team has 5 full-time staff-ish, and we're down the end of the Library Learning Commons. I should on the first floor of the main McPherson Library. So my office is 135. Come on by and say hi, or if you have any questions about anything that didn't get addressed today, you're very welcome to email me. And I'll stop talking now and open it up to questions. So I'm just gonna have a little check in the chat.